I should be live right now. If you go to the Alf page, I should be. There's the chat. The chat room is up. Yeah, you can chat to me right now. The chatting is on. So I'm live on Yao's Facebook page right now. Can you see me? You should be able to see me. I'm live. The wines are up. There's a button right in the middle of the Facebook page that says go live. Live. Yeah, ask them to check because I'm up. It's up right now. You should be able to see the wines. Yeah, I'm here now too. I don't know how to make these bottles though, just be the bottles. Maybe if I just step aside. And I put this here. And this here, like that. I can't move my computer. Can you see the wines? Okay, we still have 6 minutes for the discussion. So I'm just standing over here. These bottles are on. Let me straighten out. It's my house. I'm in a house. It's my dining room. The buffet. Oh, wait, let me see. Let me go see if I can see it. Yes, I see. Jay's on. There. Did you get my note? Well, stay on and then you can plug it. Jay is our salesman. Jay, Jay Conway. Yeah. I'm getting some tea. It's 4. Oh yeah, there's somebody there. I'm gonna have a hard time keeping up. Yes, they can. Absolutely. You want me to move the wines to there? So if I move the wine on, you can see it. Let me move this part. They have questions. Steven sent me a list of questions he'd like me to talk about. The what? Well, I'm going to start in 2 minutes. So, is Steven on board? I'm talking here too. How many people are joining? There's five. There's 5 people besides you. I can't see who they are. It just says Carol Wu and 5 others. It's 4. Okay. Oop. I'm sorry. Okay. Good evening, Hong Kong. Greetings from Napa Valley. It's June here. The vines are just closing their clusters. and we're here tonight here in Napa to talk about Yao family wines. I appreciate you joining. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Carol. Thanks to all my friends and all the folks at Carey Wines. We hope you'll have a nice tasting. We have two wines to taste this evening, the Yao family wines, Napa Crest Sauvignon Blanc, Napa Valley, 2018, and the Yao family wines Cabernet Sauvignon, our signature wine, if you will. As many of you know, Yao Ming, he founded his winery in Napa Valley. After living in the United States for 11 years, he founded his winery here in Napa to produce red wines, Cabernet-based red wines that he enjoys under his family name. We're based in the heart of Napa, in the town of St. Helena, right in the north-south core, if you will. Napa Valley is located just north of San Francisco, and it's here in 2008 where Yao and his family established his winery. I was fortunate enough he chose me to work with, and we've been together since. 2009 was our first vintage, and now I mentioned the grapes are growing. It's June. We're going to produce the 2020 vintage, so our 12th vintage here together. The first wine is our Sauvignon Blanc, and if you will, I'll toast you and say good evening, welcome, and thanks for joining. Sauvignon Blanc was actually Yao's wife, Ye Li's idea. She very much loves white wine. And so after producing red wine for our first few vintages, the thought was we need some white wine. And this is very true in Bordeaux as well as it is in other parts of the world where they produce red and white wine. And since our climate is suited to Bordeaux varieties, Sauvignon Blanc became the obvious choice. So if you come out of San Francisco and you go just 45 minutes driving north, the Napa Valley is about 60 kilometers north to south, and it's about 10 kilometers east to west. Only 4% of California wines are grown in Napa Valley. So it's a very small region. It's a very concise region, and the Pacific Ocean is just off to our west. That fog in the summer comes up. You've seen that come under the bridge in San Francisco. Well, that's the same fog that kind of comes up through Napa Valley. So the southern part of the valley, this 20 kilometers in the south, is the coolest part. And then in the north is the warmest part. And we're here. We are right in St. Helena, between St. Helena, Rutherford, Oakville, and Yountville. We have 7 vineyard sites, and our Sauvignon Blanc vineyard is right in Rutherford, one of the core communities where we grow grapes in the heart of Napa Valley. This wine is 100% Sauvignon Blanc tank fermented. So I press that Sauvignon Blanc juice. The first thing it does is it goes to tank, and in tank it spends a long cold ferment. So we want this preserve the fresh fruit flavors. You may have had Sauvignon Blanc from France, perhaps Sancerre. You may have had Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. Those are both cold climate regions. So we grow in a modest climate, a moderate temperate climate with the influence of the ocean. And so our Sauvignon Blanc has more of that melon and pear, some of that fig aroma to it. It doesn't have the herbaceousness of New Zealand, and it doesn't have the lean acidity, super lean core that Sancerre has. We are very much a unique growing climate for Sauvignon Blanc, and we capture that through that tank ferment. I use a long cool fermenting yeast. It's actually a Swiss yeast from Switzerland, and it takes about a month to ferment in tank at about under 20 degrees in that ferment. So it's a really nice preservative fermentation of those core fruit flavors. We have good core acidity, but we also have a nice feel on the palate. It's not 100%. We blend. I use a little bit of Semillon, which is another French grape that grows alongside Sauvignon Blanc in the Bordeaux region of France, and it gives it a little kind of a nice fleshy mouthfeel. So you get Sauvignon Blanc, and then about 8 8%. It's been as high as 10%, but this one is 8% Semillon. Go ahead and take a sip. Notice those aromas. Notice that fresh forward fruit flavor. I just love that pear note. We don't get that grassiness. We get fruit, and that's because in August it's beautiful in California. We have wonderful sunshine, as you do in Hong Kong, but we have that cooling, moderate influence of the Pacific Ocean during the growing season. It just lays out beautifully on the palate. You get the nice fleshiness of the Semillon, that peach pear, you get the fig, you get the melon, and then you get the finish where it brings it all together. It's a wonderful summertime wine. It's perfect in warm weather. And so I encourage you to have it. You can have it with meal because we eat lighter foods in the summer. We don't eat as heavy foods. Sometimes we eat more seafood, perhaps more vegetables, lighter fare. And so Sauvignon Blanc can be absolutely perfect for summer salads and, like I said, seafoods and lighter pasta dishes and mild cheeses. It's not something that'll carry big, rich cheeses, but farmstead cheeses, farmhouse cheeses, and medium-aged cheeses are a lot of fun with Sauvignon Blanc. Over the years in Napa Valley, Sauvignon Blanc is sort of disappearing. Napa has become a Cabernet destination. And so the vineyards, the wineries and the vineyard growers in Napa have moved from Sauvignon Blanc away from it to a certain degree. And they've planted more red wine varieties. So only about 6% of Napa Valley is planted to Sauvignon Blanc. So it's a fun departure from red, but it's also becoming more and more rare. It's a small bit of our production, and we just love sharing it with friends and with our families. And Yao and his wife love drinking it. She was the inspiration for Sauvignon Blanc, and this is the style she likes, and this is the style they like to enjoy in their home with their family and their friends. If anyone has questions, just go ahead and chat those in. I'm happy to talk about anything that may be on your mind. If you like this wine, let me know. I hope you do. And if you have any thoughts about the Sauvignon Blanc, just let me know. Our second wine this evening is our Cabernet Sauvignon. So, signature wine, if you will. It's a big wine. It's also a very balanced wine. And in Napa Valley, Cabernet Sauvignon is of course king. And the first wine we produced in 2009 was our Cabernet Sauvignon. And I mentioned we grow it in the heart of Napa. So in the north-south, that climatic core of Napa. Never to the north where it's hot, never to the south where it's cool. We make our sparkling wine in the south. It's cool enough in southern Napa Valley to produce Chardonnay and Pinot Noir to make sparkling wine as we do in the Champagne region of France. So it's that different of a climate as you move those 60 kilometers north to south. The Cabernet Sauvignon, I mentioned 2009 was our first vintage. Cabernet Sauvignon is predominantly Cabernet. It's 94% Cabernet Sauvignon. It has some Merlot, some Cab Franc, and some Petit Verdot, a little bit of each, like 2% of each of those to round out the Cabernet and really show off the core structure. Cabernet gives the wine structure. This wine ages for about 18 to 20 months, depending on the vintage and the texture of the vintage. And it's aged in oak barrels, French oak barrels. We only use French oak barrels. We bring those over. Our domestic oak, I feel, is too aggressive aromatically and texturally. It's a little difficult to work with, in my opinion. We like the elegance, the vanilla, the toasty kind of roasted notes of the French version. So we use French oak. This ages in about 75% new. One of the things we can do with our aging period is we can modify how long the wine is in barrel, and we can adjust the amount of barrel influence on the wine. So when I work with Yao on this wine, he drives the style. So this is uniquely Yao's personality and input. He likes balance. He likes tannin and oak, fruit and acidity, all working together. And so not one component kind of sticks out of the wine or causes the palate to disrupt. It's not in the warmest location, so it's not an over extracted wine. It doesn't have some of the high alcohols you associate you can get in um, in a warmer growing climate. And the tannin is moderated too because it's resolved. So we get these fine grained tannins, this beautiful sort of fruit, oak forwardness, but then on the palate you're gonna get a richness. This wine is powerful too. It'll age quite nicely. You can see the color. This is a 2016. You can see the wine is just a baby, and it's showing all of the tannin and acidity and the prominence, if you will, and the power of Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. We are a Napa Valley grower and a Napa Valley producer. So our terroir, if you will, is in fact that of the New World. It's a California wine. It's a Napa Valley wine. It's the wine Yao discovered when he came to the U.S. He came here to work, and he traveled to many different cities. And one of the things he discovered was that the food is different in the different cities. So the food in the Midwest and Chicago is very different than the food in the East Coast or New York, and even New York and Boston are different. And New Orleans is different than San Francisco, for instance, in the food flavors and flares and culinary styles. All along the way, though, he discovered U.S. wines. We make wines in all 50 states in the United States, and California is our largest producer. 90% of the wine in the U.S. is made in California, and only 4% of that wine is made in Napa Valley. So what he found was, wow, I really like American wines. The best American wines are made in California, and the best California wines are made in Napa Valley. And that's what drew him to Napa. And in Napa, the number one wine we produce in Napa is the Cabernet Sauvignon grape. And so it was that compelled him, that led him to discover, if you will, and to follow Napa wines. He lived in Houston, Texas. Houston is a large consumer of Napa Valley wines. Texas is a large consumer of Napa Valley wines, so it was quite often that he could enjoy these wines in the restaurants of Texas and his hometown of Houston, his U.S. hometown, I should say, Shanghai being his Chinese hometown. And it was this flavor that really went well with the foods he liked to eat. And I suggest Cabernet Sauvignon is best served with more prominent dishes, meat-based dishes. Typically, it can be pasta-based dishes, but mostly things like beef and pork and lamb and duck and rich sauces and mushroom, nice demi glazes, French sauces, kind of thing goes very well with Cabernet Sauvignon, and pretty much anything you would serve a Bordeaux with will go very well with California Cabernet, Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, because of that texture, that structure, that core richness. So you can serve this with a lot of different types of food. So be generous with your friends and your family when you serve this wine. This time of year, we like to grill. This past weekend, a lot of cookouts. It was Father's Day here in Napa Valley, and I went to my son's, and we, of course, drank Cabernet Sauvignon. He lives on the Napa River, and it was just a beautiful day. We grilled beef. We grilled beef tenderloin, and we had the Cabernet Sauvignon with it, and it was a perfect pairing. We had a nice side salad and some asparagus, so those held up as well. It's just a really fun match and a fun pairing. Mm. I have some questions that Stephen sent. I can address those now if you have any other questions or comments. There's Stephen now. So we have some questions that came from the team in the group and all your friends in Hong Kong there. And the first question is, how is the wine quality affected by any adverse weather in Napa Valley? And is there any example for the current vintages? That's a great question. And when we look at Napa and we look at the weather of Napa, we are considered a Mediterranean climate, the coastal stretch of California. We have two seasons. We have an arid, long summer, and then we have a moderate, mild, wet winter. And only about 2% of the Earth's surface experience this kind of Mediterranean influence. We are not a four-season climate like in Western Europe. So in Western Europe, they have what's called a continental climate. And continental climates have four distinct seasons. They have summer, fall, winter, and spring. And each of those times of the year bring with it some challenges, whether it's frost or hail or cold or heat spikes. And we're very fortunate in California that we have a very consistent weather pattern. So our grapes are very lucky. You know, we have abundant sunshine, and then the moderating effect of the Pacific Ocean each day. We sort of live in that. We live in that climate. So do our grapes. So we have a very predictable outcome each year. 9 years out of 10 are very consistent. And then we get a year like 2011, which was a very cool year. So it was a longer, cooler growing season. And thus, it was much more like the coolness of Bordeaux. So we call 2011 a Bordeaux-like vintage more so than a Napa Valley-like vintage. And so our biggest concerns are cool years, occasional heat spikes when we lose some of that fog to a high pressure system. And one of the biggest threats lately has been we do have some fires. And so fires have been kind of a challenge for us with power. None have affected our harvest. And if you try the 2016, it is a textbook vintage. It is a perfect vintage. In 2016, we were wondering what could go wrong, and it turns out nothing did. In fact, the wine writers came out and they loved 15. And when 16 came out, they were even more impressed. So 16, even though it was a slightly larger vintage because 15 was a shorter vintage, 16 is a classic Napa Valley vintage. If you want to understand Napa vintages, 16 is a perfect example of a fine year in Napa Valley. But remember, in Napa Valley, we don't have the variations that they do in Burgundy, Bordeaux. Even Oregon to the north has much more vintage variation than we do here in Napa. The second question is, what are the advantages of Yao's wines in terms of terroir, as well as price compared with other wineries in Napa Valley? I think I mentioned our terroir. Remember, Napa Valley is 60 kilometers north to south. And our unique position is we live here. We live in the heart of Napa Valley, in the north-south. Remember, cooler in the south, much warmer in the north. We live right in the middle where we like that climate pattern, that cooling fog, and that burn off during the day. So we believe our terroir is unique. We have a 20-kilometer patch, never more than 10 kilometers this way, 20 kilometers north to south, that covers 4 little villages in Napa: St. Helena, Rutherford, Oakville, and Yountville. And that to us is why we believe we're unique. in the valley. And price comparison, we believe we are fairly priced. We are modestly priced. We're priced along with our set, our neighbors, the same. We're not overpriced for our Cabernet, we don't believe. There are wines that get quite expensive in Napa because of limited production and a small growing region. And then there's wines that are priced below us. So we believe we're in that sweet spot. We're being very fair. The average cost for 1 ton of grapes in the Napa Valley is about $8,000, and we believe then that wine should sell for around 90 or 100 US dollars to support that farm cost of that fruit and the production of that wine. So we are again, I think we're very, very, very fairly priced in that regard, and we'd certainly love to hear from you. We make wines at different price points in our offerings, and so that we have something for everybody in your budget or your price range. And then one of the questions is, what do the grapes mean to me? And grapes are the most important ingredient in wine, and you can't make a great wine if you don't have great grapes. So to me and our team at Yao Family Wines, we have to have the very best grapes. And we accomplish that through farming. We have a vineyard manager, Larry, and we work together. And we were just in the vineyards this last week and through the weekend, through Saturday, and back out again on Monday, because as I think I mentioned, right now clusters are closing and berries are sizing. So we wanted to look at that process, and so we spend a lot of time ensuring that our fruit is growing correctly throughout the season. We can't fix it at the end. We have to affect it along the way. And that's the important thing when it comes to our grapes, is making those decisions, doing the farming, doing the thinning, doing the leafing, doing the cluster harvests along the way, the green droppings, if you will, to create balance on that fruiting wire. So you want perfect balance on fruiting wire so you can have good balance in the resulting wine. One final question here from the team at Carey is, is Yao Ming involved in the wine style and giving comments for the finishing of the wine every harvest? And how is he now? Yes, Yao works with us each year. He comes for the harvest, he comes for the blending, and we work together and kind of hone and craft the wine into his style. He'll taste and persuade the textures, the balance, the acidity levels based on our different grapes we can blend in with our Cabernet. So he has his hand and his fingerprint on the wines every step of the way. It's his personality in the glass, and again, I think it speaks to the balance, why we chose the sites we chose, and why our wines show the way they do, type of textures and flavors and balance, acidity, tannin. Again, I come back to the oak, not too much oak. Acidity, yes, very firm, but very well integrated. Tannin, fine tannins, not chunky tannins. And then fruit forwardness, yes, it's all about fruit forwardness, because grapes are fruit, and we don't want to obscure that through extraction or over farming kind of ripeness techniques. And the last question was, how is Yao now? He's good. It's, we've all had a very challenging time. We're all, sheltering, and we're trying to get through the coronavirus. And I believe that we're all kind of doing the same thing, whether we're here in California, Hong Kong, and he's in Beijing. We're just kind of finding our way through this, and we're finding our way through this with our family and our friends, and we're finding our way through this, with the wines we choose to consume at home. So, if you're ready to travel, I think it's going to be a little while, but we're all anxious to get about our daily routines and our spending time with other family and seeing our friends again. So I think it's coming. We a couple more, a little more time, and we'll we'll be able to get about our lives again and enjoy our wines in other places, back in restaurants and places like that. Any other questions? It's just opening up in the glass. I just love the aromas of the Cabernet. And if you want, you go back to the Sauvignon Blanc. It's still there. It's still that beautiful melon and pear, that fig note. That's just it's just really really nice. So these two wines could make a very good cellar stocking. It's good to have Sauvignon Blanc this time of year, but it's also nice to have Cabernet. So you have Sauvignon Blanc for lunch and Cabernet for dinner. You have Sauvignon Blanc for your appetizer and Cabernet for your entree. And like with Sauvignon Blanc, I always have a bottle in the refrigerator, and I come home from work and I have a glass, and it's perfect. It's perfect on a warm summer day. We're right in the middle of summer, perfect for Sauvignon Blanc. And then harvest will be coming. It looks like it'll be an average crop set this year, maybe a little lower than normal because of our flowering season. And it won't be long before September will be here in a couple months. And we'll be back to work harvesting our grapes and making our wine. The 2017s will be released shortly. They're ready to go. 18s will be bottled just before harvest at the end of August. And then we'll have 19s and 20s back in barrel by the time the holidays come rolling around. I want to thank you. I appreciate you joining us. I hope you enjoyed the wines. I hope you enjoyed Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Sauvignon this evening. I want to thank the team at Carey Wines, Stephen, Aurora, Carol. It's always good to see Jennifer Ting on a tasting. She said hi. And I hope to come back and talk again soon. Have a wonderful evening. Greetings from Napa Valley. I hope you share our wines with your family and your friends. Thank you very much.